All right, so I'm here with Billy Youngalla Williams, who is he's a Christian leader. He's a Baptist pastor. He's an Indigenous leader as well, and he's a proud Gamilaroi man. Hope I said that okay, mate. Just thanks for being with me, mate. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, it's good. It's good to have a yarn again.
Yeah, man. It's been about a year, I think, since we spoke last time, so it's good to chat. It's kind of the end of Reconciliation Week right now. So I just wanted to listen really to you and just ask you some questions. Reconciliation Week's interesting. Apparently, it started in 1993, actually as a prayer week from like church group stuff, which kind of makes sense because Jesus is all about reconciliation. How do you think we're going in Australia with this whole idea of reconciliation with First Nation people, Indigenous people, and what does that word kind of mean for you right now?
Good. Yeah, straight into big
Big question, I know, mate. I know. I didn't ask you how you're going. I'm just went straight into it.
Yeah. And they're things that, these are the things that I don't get an option to think about. Like these are constant things for me, bro, to try and process. So it's not like I'm not conscious of it and I don't see it and, take it into my being actually. So, I think reconciliation, one of the things I've started to do even just recently is even challenge, and I might be jumping the gun on you even, is asking not just what it is, but why. Like I think for people, when you go on a journey, and I was talking to someone yesterday about stories and they were talking about sharing. Actually, they're up in Townsville and in this space and wanted to share, with some younger kids. And we were talking about the difference between oversimplifying something that's quite complex, but still making it accessible. And stories tend to do that. And I was just saying, so that you don't leave stuff at the surface level, you want that to connect with the deeper truths. So as you journey in something and you gather more momentum and more complexity, one of the things that I think we've got to be careful of is even at this surface level, we start at the right spot. Because it's okay. I mean, I'm not as much of a ship fella, mate. I'm a freshwater fella from inland. So if I go to the ocean, I just think about Jaws. But if you leave the shore, if you're a little bit off, it doesn't really matter when you're in the bay. But even 1 degree of being off, if you go, on this journey, well, then at some point you've actually gotten way away from where you're trying to get to. And I think with the concept of reconciliation, one of the anchoring questions, rather than just what is it, is why reconciliation?
Okay, yeah.
And I think that for me, some of that deeper work, because I think that when the iterations of what it looks like will change, because the nature of bringing things together, then that starts to become a different entity. We talk about it with marriage. The two have become one. But then that one goes on its journey to develop what it looks like. So for me, it's not that we don't ask what does reconciliation look like, but one of the preemptive questions I want to ask is why? Why on earth? Why are you ringing me and asking me, bro? Because how you answer that, when you go deeper in the story, deeper in the journey, and you come across a challenge or another complexity, another layer comes in on top, an anchoring question, what? Oh, that's right. This is why I'm doing this. And so
starting point. Yeah.
So the better you can actually wrestle with that question too, I think that might actually benefit the what you do as well. So I sort of didn't answer your question, bro, but I just have to speak out of where my own spirit has been the last few days, is just trying to think, why do we want to talk about reconciliation? Why do you think reconciliation is important? Why do I think reconciliation is important? And again, like I think off the back of a conversation I had yesterday, the pretty quick and easy go-to, and it might be correct, but God's a reconciler. And that's a really good, I think that's a good answer. But I'd love to dig down into that again. Why? How does that impact? What's the story that tells us? And then we can actually start to answer questions like not just what reconciliation looks like, but how does it happen?
Mm.
How do we reconcile? What is required for reconciliation? You know, if it's the notion of separated parties or distinct or whatever, you know, definition you end up coming up with, then part of the question is not just why we want to reconcile, but how do we reconcile? What is required in those two parties for this reconciliation?
Mm.
You know, and you know, we don't have to look too far. We can look to the Bible and look to, you know, the Hebrew and the Christian story of, you know, what concepts we get in that, you know, like, and there's some incredible, you know, markers of what that requires.
Mm. Yeah, you always get me thinking, mate. Yeah. So what, I think is reframe everything I'm kind of coming at you with, and like, for you, why is it so important that there is some sense of reconciliation? Like, why? Yeah, I could probably answer that question too, from my point of view. But
well, I would love to, rather than let me cloudy the water. Is it something you've thought of, bro? Why do you think reconciliation is important?
I think there's multiple layers to it. Like, I think for me, as a, you know, European descent, Aussie, probably, I don't know, like fifth generation Australian, you kind of grow up with this. I know I grew up with this kind of sense of guilt and sense of like my ancestors did something horrific, and the repercussions of that are echoing today. Do you know what I mean? They're not over; they're still echoing today, and so I want to see that wrong put right as much as it can be. That would be one layer. The second layer, I guess, as a Christian, is, as you said, like, God is the reconciler, but even deeper than that, we are Jesus's big prayer is that we might be one as he is one with the Father. Do you know what I mean? And I know the ultimate goal of creation, of redemption, is everyone being one again, you know? And then probably as a third practical thing is just like, you know, when there's something in any relationship, if you've got something in between you, you want to get that to the bottom of that. You know what I mean? I think the complex thing with kind of this reconciliation of the First Nation people and is it's so complex. Do you know what I mean? There's so many layers. There's so many injustices, and then there's the whole feeling. And I'm just being really honest with you, bro. This whole feeling of like, well, I didn't do it. You know, like I wasn't around for that. And when is it? This is going to sound offensive, but I just heard it said from people, like, when is it time to move on? Do you know what I mean? But I know, how can you move on when there's still something in between, and when there's still a sense of the wrongness continues? Like, you only got to look at the gap, you know, the health gap, the incarceration gap. And bro, yeah, that's why I kind of just love talking to you, because not that you've got all the answers either, man, but it's just like, I get a bit lost in all of this. And apart from praying, what else is there to do? So there you go. There's my response, mate.
Good. Good on you. I appreciate you having a shot, because, you know, like I say, that is a pretty deep question. And, you know, one of the things that happens in the space too, and I'm not going to do this to you, bro, but I even feel it too when I go on a Zoom. I feel the pressure. Like, I feel there's a genuine people do want to listen, but you can feel the pressure that whatever answer you give could have a big bearing on, you know, like, I don't want to overstate my case, but
sure.
But people hear stuff. And this is one of the things, I'm not on social media. And I think social media awareness is a really powerful tool. And one of my observations this year, again, and this, I might lose a lot of listeners. I don't watch much footy anymore. I had my gut full when I was a little fella, loved it. So I just don't, I'm not into footy much, but I've been hanging around a few fellas that still love watching it. And I would really noticed, because this weekend past was both Indigenous round for NRL and AFL. I think other sports are even putting up their hand now. So I really noticed this year how much awareness raising is going on. Like, that's a pretty powerful thing. So one of the first you know, for healing to happen for anyone, either at a personal level or I suggest a community level, corporate level, is awareness. You've got to be aware first. And so part of me thinks, wow, you know, and social media is a big part of that. There's a real, you know, movement towards letting people know. One of the issues I've got with social media, though, is it can become a real free-for-all, you know, and it can be a painful place. It can be a place where people can pretty easily type whatever and you know.
There's some disgusting stuff that gets said, you know, that people wouldn't say in person, you'd hope.
Yeah, that's right, bro. And so issues remain issues. We don't talk about it as people, you know, like, you know. And so that's my concern with this. I'm really, it's exciting to think that awareness is growing, but how do we see? Because what I hear sometimes is that's our hurt and our own pain coming out too, our own lack of awareness in the space. And you know, does reconciliation happen at an individual level? Does it happen? How does it happen at a communal level? How do you reconcile between groups of people, let alone a nation, bro? And that always interests me. And I don't know if it's as simple, unfortunately, as the cart before the horse. I don't know which one comes first. And this always raises for me, as it should, good theological questions, you know, because, you know, we could probably, I could observe that in the West, there's a real bent, if we're not careful, towards personal salvation, you know, that it's my relationship with God. And yet it doesn't take that much scratching to see that the Hebrew people always thought communally, that even for the Jewish people, their ceremonies and everything they were doing and Jesus's activity wasn't just for individuals, but he was really looking for a society and a world to change.
Yeah, corporate,
And what I heard the other day, someone was talking and saying, we can cope with difficult situations at a small level. But once it starts to open up too wide, we start to talk about reconciling a nation. It almost, we feel like we're stuck. It's just too much. It's too much complexity for us to hold. Now, the danger there is we just say, well, it's too complex. We can't do anything. And I think that probably isn't a helpful place to be in. You know, I think I recognise the complexity of what we're talking about, but I also want to call out that notion that we shouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just because it's hard, you know, oh, well, we'll see what happens, you know, so.
Yeah, it gets you can get paralysis, but then that can't be an excuse to do nothing. Do you know what I mean?
And so, and let me throw it back. So what do you think? How do you think you move beyond paralysis to a bit of momentum?
I think you learn, someone wise once said to me that we make the path as we walk it. I believe that was you when you spoke to me last year. So I think for me, it's like, just what does it mean? Just start walking the path, because then the complexity of the big picture becomes, you know, it becomes more personal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I often wonder about that. Like, what's one question I was going to ask you is like, what's some simple actions that a non-Indigenous Aussie Christian that follows Jesus can take? One thing I've done the last 12 months is just educate myself a lot more on, you know, some of the Indigenous history, some of our Australian history, some of the really sad history, and some of the great things as well that have been done in terms of in this path of reconciliation. I think we can sometimes focus on the negatives too much, and we have come a long way as a nation. But then I guess I worry that we're losing a bit of that ground sometimes. But yeah, for me, it's just, I personally just think if I can find someone to listen to, find someone to speak to, give a voice, listen before speaking, and then when you think it's time to speak, maybe listen again.
Nice.
probably one of the reasons I like talking to you is because, yeah, you just give a perspective I often haven't thought of. So, yeah.
Yes. Oh, good on you. I appreciate that you've done some concrete things, and I think that's important to share that, bro, and be an advocate for that, you know, what it's done for you. I just wanted to pick up, you said something very interesting. You said, I think we might have lost a little bit of ground. What makes you feel that way about it? What do you see or what do you feel because of that?
Yeah, bro, I this is just a sense. Do you know what I mean? And I like stats and research and science, so I guess I need some stats to kind of back this up. But I get a sense that people are more they are more siloed in the last kind of 5 to 10 years. There is a sense of people being more defensive for their tribe, their clan, their people. It's almost like by saying that things are hard for Indigenous people, some people would feel like they're saying it's not hard for other people.
Yeah.
And it's hard for lots of people. Do you know what I mean? But just because you're saying life's hard for one group because of a certain thing, there's this vehement, you know about this, man. This is this vehement movement that's progressive movement that's got some really good things to it. That's saying, hey, let's just make sure we look after all the different groups. Do you know what I mean? Then there's this anti group, this just as vehement anti-woke group coming at it saying, hey, let's not keep giving people identity in their little groups. Let's just try and think of the bigger group or the individual. And I just get lost in that, man, to be honest. Like I can see such good in both sides and such evil really in both sides, defensiveness. But I see the image of God in both sides as well. I see this sense that both sides are going, I want humans to flourish.
Yeah.
I want people to win. I want there to be goodness in the world. So I don't think there's really bad motives behind it, but I just think these two movements have put people into camps. And I see it. I see it in my church. I see it in my own family. I see it in society. There's the camps seem to be stronger. I don't know. Have you seen that? I don't know if I'm just talking about something that's not real. I'm not sure.
No. It's all real, and it's real, especially because from your perspective. So, it's not a stretch for me to understand what you're saying at all, bro. I fully get it, and I can appreciate. That's
affected the Indigenous kind of your community that you hang out with, that you know, like not the. I'm not talking about the big Indigenous community.
It's mine.
Yeah.
Totally. I think I was pretty honest last year that some of our younger people were really flustered. Flustered's the wrong word. I'd have to use strong language.
We can beep things out on this now.
You'd have to beep what I'd use, bro, because it was that strong in them. When the Black Lives Matters thing came out, and in particular some of them saw that the church's lack of engagement was really troubling, and still has sat with them as a really, I almost had this analogy. I was going to talk about a pebble in your shoe, that when you were talking about, that niggling bit, but it's not a niggle, it's a cut off. They want to cut it off. And that really concerns me. We spoke about that a little bit last year, bro, that for people who, particularly when we start to explore that why of reconciliation, and we can't separate that from our creator. I agree, bro. I think it's innately part of the whole thing, the connectedness of all things. And I could argue that about the land itself, that there's invitations not just as people, but to be connected to the whole thing.
Yes,
everything. If Christ is in all things, then the whole thing is the thing. So, but that was so alarming, and that's as I said last year, that's what prompted me to come out of hiding and cut 2 pages and just try and figure out what was going on, because I must admit I was concerned as well that this group of people that have been supposedly reconciled with Christ didn't see it as something to engage with, and that's complex. I get it, but saying that something's political, therefore it's not spiritual, that just doesn't cut it with me. And so again, that it wasn't even paralysis. It was just a flat out almost denial that it's an issue, that it's something that we as the body of Christ should engage with. And I think I'll probably feel stronger this year to call that out and say, well, that would trouble me if people feel like it's a non-issue. Calling something political, Jesus, I think we might have covered this last year, that he was what got him into trouble was the political, not just the spiritual. And so I don't think you can. I need a gospel that's for all of life and for all of people.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's going to be a complex thing. It's going to cover uncomfortable areas of our own lives and our society's life.
Yeah.
That is just part and parcel of it. And so
I think it's this sense that I know as a pastor myself, like that there's a reluctance to get on board with a movement that has parts of it you disagree with. Do you know what I mean? I could sense that. Do you know what I mean? As in, get on a move. And I think you said individually. I think Christians have evangelical Christians in the West have such a focus on individual sin. Do you know what I mean? So if we just sort out individual sin, it'll be fine. But then they ignore structural sin, because structural sin in our systems is prevalent, clearly prevalent in the Bible. You can see a lot of the prophets calling it out all the time. Jesus himself calling it out. The whole system of Jerusalem was broken. You know, he was calling out individuals and he's calling out a system. Because systems are so complex, we don't know what to do with them. And I think we like to ignore it. And I guess, and there are some, I was talking to my brother-in-law, who's an Indigenous guy, and he was just saying he went along to the Black Lives Matter marches, and he was, going, this is, along with my sister-in-law, and just saying, oh, this is a really, it's a great thing to be at. And then every now and then someone would say something, they're like, we want rights, we want a voice, and someone would say, and you can F the police, and they're like, oh, I can't get on board with that bit. But I love the fact that he was there, because I think that's what the church hasn't done great.
Yeah.
They've gone, oh, let's just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater and ignore something that is just, man, I don't know. I'm kind of just rabbiting now, but I just...
No, that's good. And one response to it, I just want to say, bro, that I get it. I've heard that same conversation. Oh, there's bits of it that I don't agree with. But that's my own life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just find it interesting that we'll do it with a certain narrow view on something, but the reality, we ignore the total reality in our whole lives. So there must be a lot of pastors with a perfect church then, if they agree with everything that's going on in the church. There must
Mine's
be a lot of
perfect, but yeah.
Of course, I've heard. I'm not on social media, bro, so I'm only guessing. But even the notion of the systems that we're involved in, they are all busted up.
Yeah, man.
And so what troubles me is, I just want to echo that back to those people that are saying that. Oh, well, I can't possibly participate in something that isn't 100% perfect. Well, okay. Well, you're actually part of a political system that's not 100% perfect.
Yeah.
You're certainly part of an economic system that's not 100% perfect. You're part of a life. If you believe your own theology that you tell me, then you're not perfect.
Yeah.
So then you're saying you're not going to participate in those things that aren't all washed clean and squeaky right.
Yeah.
So I just think that troubles me, bro. I just want to call that back. And the second thing it's prompted me for, bro, was, and this is not meant to be a trick question, but just something to ponder is, do people make systems or do systems make people?
I think a bit of both, maybe.
Yeah. And I think therein lies something for us, isn't it? That it's true, bro. This momentum that systems have, it's almost that they have a spirit of their own.
Yeah.
And I could see evidence of Jesus actually really addressing systemic stuff, institutional
principalities and powers.
I think that was a little bit of where he was going with that, bro. I agree that notion of it's got a spirit of its own. He talked about money in the same way, that it's got a spirit to it.
Mammon, mammon,
but it's also how we as people engage in this space, in complex, less than perfect spaces.
Sure.
Us less than perfect people, still having a burden, I would suggest, and not even an option. I think maybe if I was to name something that troubles me the most, bro, it'd be this notion that we seem to get privilege. For me is getting a choice, you know, like, and I get choice all the time. I'm a fairly privileged person. But when we start, if one of the first things, one of those why questions of reconciliation is that it's all connected, then it's interesting, isn't it, that we're saying, oh, well, no, in this one area, I'm not going to be connected. I'm going to draw myself out of it and not have a engagement with it.
Yeah, sure.
But hang on a sec, isn't the first principle we're arguing that it's all connected, you know? And that doesn't make it an easy answer. And I want to call myself out on it. I'll go away and have a red hot think about where I do that, bro, because that's my privilege. Sometimes I'll disconnect with the things that are too hard for me, that I'm, you know, and there's nothing wrong with an honest answer of saying, I feel paralyzed in this, or I feel disempowered in this, I don't feel safe in this. They're all very valid things.
But didn't Jesus, sorry. You
No, please. No, jump in.
Like, I'm just thinking, didn't Jesus give us a beautiful example of entering into broken systems and participating in them fully without endorsing the whole system? Do you know what I mean? Like, he preached in synagogues. He went to the temple to worship. He went to, you know, brothels, or the equivalent of. He was in parties where people were getting drunk. He was called a drunkard. All of these different systems, the broken religious system, the broken, you know, social system, he's entering into all of them, and he's participating fully in them without endorsing every part of them. Do you know what I mean? So surely Christians can get behind a movement that says that Black Lives Matter, or behind a movement, without saying they're endorsed. You know what I mean? Like, it's about the people and the heart. Like, didn't Jesus say, you know, the Father would leave the 99 to find the one? And it's not saying that 99 aren't important.
Yeah, it's good.
It's saying that the one is, you know, and I think that gets lost. I know I put my hand up. I think I lose that too. I can get a bit worried about the politics of things, and a bit worried about, you know, and they're good questions to have, but
they are.
I get a bit lost, man, to be honest. And I guess,
good, bro.
Yeah. So
that's really good, bro. No, I appreciate that. That's good. I appreciate that when I see people journeying like that, you know, and it's not to say it's easy answers, or, you know what I mean, but even using those scriptures and those things that we use all here, just bringing those to bear in this one place too, you know. I really appreciate that, bro. No, I saw it happen just then, so thanks. I appreciate that.
You're a busy man. I better let you go. One question, and this is the kind of question that, like, you hate, it's hard to answer, because it's trying to create this beautiful, complex narrative we've been talking about. It's trying to compress it down into this little thing.
Yeah, sure.
That never works. But if you had, like, you know, a minute to say one thing to non-Indigenous Aussie Christians who follow Jesus and want to live it out, what would you say?
Yeah, it's great. I'm sorry. I would love. Part of me feels like I want to give a really practical answer. But I just want to share with you one idea, a framework that it's bubbling out of my spirit. So I've just got to share it. And I'm still working on it too. So just bear with me. I haven't explored it fully, but I just really feel to share it right now with you, bro, and your mob. One of the things I've been thinking about this past week and grappling with is how does perspective change? And one of the ideas I'm working on, and if you picture two circles, one of the things I'm working on is, I think, posture. One idea is posture. So if you have this posture to your life that says, I want to be a lifelong learner, I don't know it all, wow, I think perspective can change when you take that posture. That's amazing. The other circle is proximity. And I think, you know, you can be so close to something, you know, that it's your daily experience or whatever it might be, geographically, relationally, whatever it might be. But I think perspective can change when you're in close proximity to something, you know, and both these things can be positive and negative. I get that. You can be so close to something that you want to escape it. You can be so close to something that it reinforces a stereotype. That's true.
Yeah.
But I have this notion that this crossover between your posture and your proximity, that space here can really have a bearing on your perspective. You know, so what I'm hearing you say, I don't know it all. You know, so you're starting to drop down a little bit and say, oh, there's a space in me that could, you know, I don't. Wow. And then you're saying, oh, I've been reading some other stuff. I've been getting closer to some different information. And I think what I'm hearing, bro, is in here, there's a fertile place for your perspective to change.
Mm.
And so I want to encourage, you know, I'm going to continue to try and think about that for my own life. It's not a perfect analogy, none are. But I'm just trying to encourage people. What is it that maybe is a next step for you? Is it to just let go of some of the, you know, the pain of your own pain or the fear of your own fear and say, what if I just dropped down a little bit and said, okay, Lord, what's in this for me? Maybe that posture. Or maybe it's watching NITV once a week. You know, what's the news from an Indigenous perspective? You know, that I just get a bit closer to this. Or I've got an Aboriginal friend, but I've never spoken to them about this stuff. You know, maybe my posture is I'm just going to have a cup of coffee and a yarn and see what comes out of it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's good.
So that was just something that I really, I don't know, I'm still in the guts of trying to grapple with, but I hopefully it might have some stuff for people.
That's so helpful. I appreciate it a lot, mate. I like Venn diagrams. So
No, I'm the man. I'm the guy. I don't know who that is or what it is, but if that's what it is, I've got it covered.
Mate, really appreciate your time. Hey, that was
Thanks.
That was really good. Thank you so much, mate.
Thanks, brother.
Could you maybe pray for us? Is that all right?
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Bayami Yaliwanga. Bayami. God, you've always been God, and you always will be. And we are discussing complex, beautiful, frightening things. And you are the one through Christ who changed your posture.
Yeah.
Though you had equality with God, you didn't consider it something to be grasped, but you emptied yourself. That's amazing. You became a servant. I pray, I feel it now, I really pray that we will find ourselves in that posture, the same as our Christ, that we would be willing, where appropriate, to empty ourselves, to serve this world. And you are also Emmanuel, the one that came near, made your dwelling amongst us. And so we see this example, and I just pray. I want to pray for Dan and myself. I want to pray for our respective communities. Dare I get a bit complex, Lord, and pray for the world, that we would just in some way, somehow, grab hold of this, to just have the posture and proximity of our Christ in us, but also in the world. And so, thank you, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity to have a yarn. And we just humbly submit the conversations. We trust that you've been in them and you'll continue to be in them as we make the path by walking. We want to walk by the Spirit. And so help and guide us in that. And I do pray for every person made in the image of God. Your deep desire, as Dan said, for there to be this overflow in this world of the beautiful God. Help us, Lord, we pray. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Bless you, brother.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, mate.
Your wisdom. You're
Go well. Thanks, bro. And I appreciate that. You go well, eh?
See you, mate.